We often think of motorsport photography as clean, polished, and high speed, frozen moments of precision and control. But Jamey Price's new book, Racing Unfiltered, turns that idea on its head. Armed not with a high-end DSLR or mirrorless camera, but with a stack of disposable film cameras, Jamey set out to capture something raw and unvarnished. The result is a gritty, intimate portrait of life inside the paddock, backstage moments, blurred nights, spontaneous celebrations, and the quiet human spaces that exist between. Known for his elite-level motorsport work, Jamey takes a risk with Racing Unfiltered. It's a creative detour, but one that taps into the same instincts that draw him to photography in the first place. Curiosity, access, and a love for storytelling. The work feels fast, tactile, and personal, like thumbing through someone's visual journey at 200 miles per hour. This is Ibarian X, and this is The Candid Frame. All right, well, Jamey, welcome to The Candid Frame.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
I got to tell you, I have great admiration for the photography that you do. I had a chance years ago to go to Monterey and get onto the track. And I was there because a particular camera manufacturer was promoting a camera. So they brought a bunch of photographers out there to try a hand at shooting. And man, I got to tell you, most of the stuff I shot was crap, of course.
It's hard to get used to, but then once you're used to it, it's really, I don't want to say easy, but it's very predictable. Like I've been very fortunate over my career to have done a lot of different kinds of sports, and like I still think volleyball, indoor volleyball, is like one of the hardest things that I've ever photographed.
Really?
Yeah, it's just unpredictable. Like you have a court and it's dark and it's horribly lit, and you know it could be any one of 12 people on the court that hits the ball, and you're at ISO 10,000. And, like with car racing, they're always going to be on the racetrack. So it's one of those things that's like, I really enjoy car racing and I enjoy the sport a lot. But once you get used to the speed, it becomes a lot more like you can process it. Like once you kind of get past that, like, oh my gosh, these things are really going fast.
Yeah. The two things that really awed me was the speed and secondly, the noise.
Yeah. I love the noise. I love the speed too, but I've always loved the noise.
But it gave me a great appreciation for the skill involved. Because I think a lot of people think, well, if you have the most advanced camera out there today, you can make these pictures very easily. And it's like, man, the camera has nothing to do with it. Because like with any sport, you need to know the sport. You need to know the players. You need to know the field, or in this case, the track, in order to really be able to do that sort of consistently. Any Yahoo with a decent camera may pull off a good photograph every once in a while, but when you're relying on this work for your career, for your living, it's an altogether different beast. Yeah,
it has its days where it has its challenges for sure. I enjoy the challenge of it. Like I enjoy, I feel like any photography niche, whether it's weddings or photojournalism, working for a newspaper, or, being a football photographer or whatever it is, really it all comes down to like people and who you meet along the way. And, I know some incredibly talented photographers that make beautiful images, but they'll never make a living from it. But then when you take like the actual profession side, I know some very average photographers, and I sometimes would put myself in that category. Like, there's days where we just struggle because it's an art form. But I know some very average photographers that make an incredible living. And it's all just people. It's all people who you know and who you meet and how much they like you.
Yeah, and I know that you're an athlete yourself. You're a swimmer, you're horseback, you're a jockey.
I was a jockey, yep.
Jockey. So you had sort of experience as an athlete yourself before you decided to get behind the camera. What was it? What do you think about being an athlete, especially at the college level, that really kind of helped to inform what you do as a photographer? Are there any qualities there you feel like, having had that experience played a role in how I ended up making pictures.
For sure, especially on the horse racing side. The swimming side, like, it was an amazing place as a swimmer. Like, you know, taking pictures in an indoor pool was an amazing place to learn the actual art of photography and like how shutter speed works, how aperture, and, you know, it's kind of like what I was saying about volleyball. It's a little bit more predictable than volleyball because the swimmer is only going to be in like a pretty narrow lane. But with swimming, I was able to take my camera and bring it to my swim meets and do all the things that I was doing just as a college athlete with my teammates. So it gave you the great access. It gave me amazing access just to people that I knew really, really well. Like, these are my family members. You know, I had probably 40 different kids on the swim team that were, you know, from freshman age to seniors. And we all do different strokes and different events, and we are all like, there's men and women. So it gave me a really good place to practice photography as an art form and also photojournalism. But the horse racing side taught me and gave me so much more as like, these are, because it was horse racing that I was covering is a professional sport versus, you know, college swimming. Like, none of us are Michael Phelps. Like, we're not going to be going to the Olympics. You know, we were pretty good at swimming, but we're not going to be going to the Olympics or, you know, competing for our country. So when you take, it just takes a step up in terms of the sporting professionalism, and you go from, you know, to a sport like horse racing that is a professional sport with professional jockeys, professional trainers, professional horses, that this is their job. This is their only job. Right. And you can take that and you can start to cover it in a way that, like, people care about this sport. People care about these people. People care about these athletes or these particular events. And you start to see it in a little bit of a different light, and you see it in a different way where it's not just me documenting for my friend Brad or, you know, James or whoever it is, like, on my swim team. It's suddenly these are pictures that matter because this jockey won, you know, the Kentucky Derby with this horse, or like, just, there's a lot of different examples, but it's a really beautiful sport, and it's a little bit more, I don't want to say more challenging than swimming or volleyball, for example, but like, it takes a different like level of, you know, photography equipment. You need a little bit longer lenses. It starts like shifting a little bit more toward car racing, where you need longer lenses. You have that fast-paced action where the horses aren't going to be necessarily really that close to you. So you need a 70-200 or something longer than that. So it really taught me a lot about, okay, this is like not just college swimming that I'm covering here. Like, this is different. And I'm getting paid to now cover horse racing, even as a jockey. Like, I'm able to like take my experiences as a jockey and show what the experience is like as a professional jockey, or for what it's like for them, and the different emotions that they go through. But it definitely felt different than covering some of the college athletics that I'd done, because I knew it really well, and I knew how important it was to those people that are working in horse racing, that these horses are everything to them. And so it was a really interesting time in my life to look back on.
When I think about some of the greatest athletes, especially when they've had a lengthy career, there are times when they have to change some things up. I think about Tiger Woods, who early in mid-career started changing his stroke. And all of a sudden he was people thought, okay, it's over. You know, he's done. But he's really trying to reinvent himself. Right. And all athletes, I think, to some degree, have to sort of reassess that and make some small change that they have to continually practice until it finally sort of gels and they're at another level. Have you ever felt that you had something analogous to that as a photographer?
A little bit. In some ways physically, kind of like, you know, we all get older and things change for our bodies, and you're no longer able to do what you were able to do at 22 years old, kind of. You know, so like a lot of the sports that I'm covering are endurance motorsport events. Like, they are literally 24-hour car races. And so if the race is running for 24 hours, that doesn't mean I wake up and go to bed at, you know, green flag and checkered flag. Like, there's a whole lot of time before and there's a whole lot of time after. So you can be awake for 36, 37, 38 hours. And I've done enough of them now that It's a lot harder than it used to be. That's for sure.
So what's your trick to be able to keep up now that you're getting older and it's not as easy?
At the beginning, I don't know. Like I used to like just crush caffeine. Like the first 2 or 3 endurance races I did, I would like just drink Red Bulls and coffee. And now I'm like, coffee is bad for you. If you're trying to like stay awake for a very long period of time, right. Water is where it's at. But to your question, like reinventing yourself, you have to kind of like pace yourself a little bit physically. And I have to know my own boundaries and I have to know where I'm going to be. Not like, okay, if we're starting the race in an hour, I have to know what I'm going to be feeling tomorrow at this same time, 24 hours from now, and still able to make those pictures, be creative, stay on top of it, stay on top of delivery deadlines and all that stuff. So I haven't really feel like I haven't had to change anything in terms of the art necessarily, but physically you have to pace yourself a little bit more. And I'm okay with that. Like, maybe I'll take a 30-minute nap for this next race kind of thing instead of trying to stay up for all of it.
I saw one of your videos where you talk about that glass is far more important than the camera, which I totally agree, because I know when people are, in my opinion, are very quick to change cameras.
Very.
But from experience, I know there can be really subtle differences. There was a camera that I was using. It was an X100, I think S or something, or 100 or S. And I've been using it for 2 or 3 years. Someone lent me the next model up. And for the first couple of weeks, I was missing shots because there was just a slight little delay in the actuation of the shutter from me pressing the button to getting the picture. And it took me a while to sort of acclimate. And I suspect that you're kind of very slow to adopt a new camera despite, all the bells and whistles the manufacturers promote for similar reasons.
Yeah, I don't know that I wouldn't necessarily say I'm slow, but I'm a big believer that, the camera bodies are just an extension of what's going on in here in our heads for us. So we're choosing the settings, we're choosing, what lens to put on the camera. But if I went back and posted 10 pictures from my career that I've taken on 10 different cameras, and I have examples from multiple different camera manufacturers as well, no one but me would be able to tell the difference between what I took on a D800 or a D3 or a D5 or a D6, or, I've used the Canon 1DX2s for a little while, and now I'm using the Z9s. Like, no one would be able to tell the difference between like those original pictures and now, unless you blow it up the size of a wall.
Yeah.
You're not going to see that. And who's blowing up pictures the size of the wall? Like, yes, I have had pictures blown up the size of a wall, but like, it's very rare. And most of it's going on Instagram. And, whether you're shooting weddings or race cars, that's what most of our pictures are being used for, is social media.
And you have to turn your images around really, really quickly, faster than most people, would think. And as a result, you're shooting JPEGs that are getting transmitted over a device that you have alongside that's sort of tethered to your camera using Bluetooth or Wi-Fi.
That's honestly the worst part of the modern day photography and how we have, all of us, if you're working in sports, it's not just like I had to adapt to this, but it's been a big change for all of us, having to figure out how to, be able to go through our pictures and not have to deliver them tomorrow or next week or, whenever we used to be able to do it. Like, you had a lot more wiggle room, and now, like, I have clients asking for pictures minutes after a session or race is over, and I'm still walking back to the media center from pit lane, and they're like, "Hey, we need to get a shot out for the press release." And I'm like, I'll get you something in 5 minutes. Like, just let me sit down for a second. But yeah, that's been the hardest part, is just the deadlines and how fast things have had to change just for the immediacy of social media. Even if nobody reads the press release that, some manufacturer is banging on my door for, they still need it. It's still important to them. And who am I to say it's not important?
So what do you have to do since you don't have the flexibility or the option of pulling an image into Photoshop and tweaking the raw file? What did you have to learn how to do in camera to make sure you have a deliverable that the client's going to be happy with?
Well, fortunately for me, when I was learning photography in college, I had 2 really formative internships, both of them with newspapers. And with newspaper photography, like, you're just not allowed to change a lot. Like, you're just not allowed to. It's editorial guidelines that, each paper and the photo editors at the paper are stuck with. And it's because you need to be able to trust, when you see something in the New York Times, you need to be able to trust that it was taken and not been manipulated into something that it wasn't. So as a result, I was learning, like, how you balance the exposure triangle of shutter speed, aperture, ISO, to make the picture you want to make in the camera itself without having to go into Photoshop and Lightroom and change something that wasn't a silhouette into a silhouette, or, cloning stuff in or out. Like, you have to, if you don't like the background, move. If you don't like the foreground, change your lens. Like, whatever thing you needed to do was what we had to do. And so I really enjoyed working for those 2 newspapers, one of them being the Charlotte Observer, which is a big newspaper. It was a really big newspaper at the time. It's definitely, all newspapers are smaller now, but it was a really big newspaper at the time. And we still had a printing press in the actual building. So it was a really cool experience to learn photography with a big, like, we had a photo editor, we had 10 or 11 staffers at the time. And I was just the intern. I was just the summer intern. But, you learn a lot. You get thrown in the deep end with people that have been doing this since the 60s, 70s, 80s. Like, they've been doing it a long time. And so you can learn a lot from those photographers. And I really just tried to absorb all of it. So now when I'm taking pictures, I know that I need to make the picture that I need right at, like, as I'm holding the camera. If I can't, like, I'll just change the exposure later, or I'll just make it I'll just add some motion blur later in Photoshop, or all those things that are relatively easy to do now. Even if it takes me, let's say, like 3 minutes or 5 minutes to do it in Photoshop, if you multiply 5 minutes times the number of pictures that I'm having to deliver over a 24-hour race, like, we're talking hundreds of pictures at this point.
Yeah.
And it, you've been awake for 32 hours. So, if you're having to multiply, like, that volume of images times 5 minutes per image, or even if you reduce the number of images, it adds up very quickly. And my clients are like, we don't have time to wait for it. We don't have time to wait for you to add motion blur or to Photoshop the background or foreground into what you wanted it to be. You need to be a better photographer and make it in the camera. And thankfully, they don't have to say any of this to any of us that are working in motorsport. You really have to, get it right, because we just don't have time to screw with it. As much as I would like to, I just don't have time to.
Well, your new book, Racing Unfiltered, takes the whole sort of tech process out of it, because
take all of that and throw it away.
Yeah, you're making pictures with old disposable film cameras that no control of shutter speed or aperture or ISO or white balance. I can imagine the looks that you got when you brought out these cameras and started shooting with it. Yeah. You have access to all this expensive gear. How and why did you decide to start making pictures with these things?
I don't want to say I got, like, bored with the digital photography, because it's not true. It's not that at all. It's really, like, I wanted to do something different and to be able to have fun, because I feel like, with what I was saying about the delivery deadlines and just the pressure of working for some of these manufacturers, like, it's a lot of pressure. Like, it's really, it can be a lot. Like, there's days where it feels really heavy and you have a lot of people that are needing things all at the same time, and you're having to organize a lot of different things. Like, there's just so many sides to this job that people just don't really know or understand. And I could talk about it for an hour, but it really just comes down to, I just felt like there was parts of it that weren't fun anymore, and I wanted to have fun doing something.
Yeah.
And I saw this photographer on Instagram take one of these, like, it's shaped like a NASCAR stock car, and it's a film camera. It's like there's lots of fun examples of, film cameras that are shaped like beer cans or, like soccer balls. I've seen all kinds of crazy stuff. But these particular cameras, I saw this photographer using, and they had been sold at NASCAR races in the late 90s. And there was kind of like different colors and liveries and, paint jobs from your favorite NASCAR driver, like Jeff Gordon and Dale Earnhardt Sr. And there's just there's a couple different like options that you could have at the time. And I saw this photographer using one, like a year or two ago. And I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. Like, I need to have this camera. I really want to have something fun. It's small, it's truly disposable size, but you can reload film into it. So you can use it more than once. And I was like, I just have to have this. So I scoured the internet. I found a couple of them. I broke a bunch of them. They're so cheap. Like, they're just the cheapest plastic you can imagine, and stuff breaks and they can barely wind. Like, at the end of 36 exposures, like, the thing barely winds anymore because it just doesn't have like the strength to wind the film out of the film canister. Yeah. But I've really enjoyed using them because you do get, like, it does bring a fun side of photography. Like, it's gotten me indoors that I wouldn't have gotten into, like, with just a regular like mirrorless camera. Like, there was a couple races ago when I was in Austin for the Formula One race, and I was standing outside Max Verstappen's garage, who's one of the Red Bull drivers. He's a 4-time world champion. I'm sitting outside his garage, and two of his mechanics, like, I'm sitting there with my like 400 millimeter over my shoulder, and I've got like both my cameras on my shoulders, and I pull out this like NASCAR film camera out of my pocket, and these two mechanics working for Red Bull look at me and they're like, well, that's different. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to do spy photography of your car with this. And they kind of laughed. And so they asked about it, and they kind of held it a little bit. And then I was like, have a great day, good luck today, yada, yada, yada. So we all go our separate ways. And then last weekend, when I was in Abu Dhabi in the Middle East for the final round of the Formula One championship, I pull out this film camera, I take a picture, and Max Verstappen's car is sitting in this area where they kind of keep the cars after qualifying is over. And his car is standing there, and these two same mechanics are sitting there next to the car, and I pull out the film camera, and they're like, hey, you're back. And it was kind of like a really fun, like, they remembered the camera. I remembered them. We had like a fun interaction. I was like, yeah, I still got it. It was really cool. Like, and it's been stuff like that where you kind of break down barriers a little bit between people that are traditionally, I don't want to say not friendly toward photographers, but there's like a little bit of rivalry is not the right word either, right. But I don't know. It's like almost like a little like war between photographers and the mechanics, because part of somebody's job is to do spy and tech photography of the Formula One cars. So when somebody pulls out a camera near their car, like, instinctively, they're going to be a little bit more guarded and jaded. And you pull out a stupid little film camera that looks like Jeff Gordon's car that has like the rainbow and the number 24 on it. They know they don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, that's a great story. It's the idea of having fun. It's amazing that's what brings everybody to photography in the first place.
Totally.
Right? Is the fun and the joy that's derived from making pictures. And then over time, we lose that because we take it and us way too seriously.
Yep.
And then the introduction of this camera kind of takes you back to that experience of first making those pictures. When you started making those photographs, tell me about how you felt differently when you were looking through what passes as a viewfinder on that thing.
Yeah,
making pictures, because they're very different. From what the stuff we see on your website. So what was going on in your head as you're making these photographs?
I mean, really, it came down to, like, I was able to, the first time I used it, I remember I was in Austin at Circuit of the Americas, and it was about this time of year, it was December, that I did a test with Lamborghini. Lamborghini was developing a new car that was going to be racing the following season. So I brought one of these cameras with me. I brought a couple rolls of film. I loaded a roll of film, and I shot, I don't know, like not a lot. I didn't even use one roll of film. And I remember I took it to the camera store here in Charlotte where I live, and they do a great job of processing film. And I took it to them, and they emailed me back like, a day later, they're like, your roll is blank. And I was like, great. So this is a fun introduction to film. And I haven't shot film ever professionally. So, it's been something that I never really dabbled in as an actual like working photographer. We back in the 90s, we all had film cameras, like disposable film cameras. And I would take a little film camera to camp with me to summer camp. And, but it wasn't the same when you're actually like trying to make pictures instead of just, take a picture of your friend swimming in a lake kind of thing. So when I got that first rollback that was blank, I was really disheartened by it. I was like, this is stupid. Like, what am I doing? So I gave it one more chance, and I brought it to the Daytona 24-hour in 2024. And I think I did like 5 rolls, and all of them came back. There was no blank ones, and the pictures were really cool. Like, they just had a different look and feel to them. Sun flares look different because the lens on these cameras is literally plastic. Like, it is junk. There's nothing quality about these cameras. So when you point it into the sun, it's like looking through like a kid's like toy plastic window kind of thing. Like, the quality is just not there. Like, you see scratches and highlights and refractions, and it just felt like totally different to what my camera was taking, even from the exact same thing. Like, I would take a picture of something that was in front of me, and I would do it for work on my mirrorless cameras, and then I would pull out the film camera and take the same picture. And it was a totally different experience, like putting that up to my eye. And, you had to be very selective about what photo you're taking, especially with people, like where somebody's blinking. It's really challenging. And the fact that the viewfinder on the little film cameras is not directly what you're actually looking at, what the picture will be. So that was kind of challenging to kind of figure out as well. So, but it really was kind of a trial through, like, kind of figuring it out and, seeing what worked and what didn't based on once I got the film scans back. I can now figure out what the focal range is, or what it actually is and what it feels like. And then they have a really slow shutter speed, shockingly. So you can actually pan with it when the cars are going past you. You can get some like motion blur, but also at the same time, that if, you're taking pictures of people, if they're moving at all, it's going to be soft. And if you're moving at all, it's going to be soft. So you have to be very stable with how you hold it and what you're shooting. It definitely made me slow down and think about the process a lot more. But instead of covering a race for work where I'm taking 20,000 pictures during a 24-hour race, if I came back with 100 film, scans, and I like 10 or 15 of them, I'm pretty happy with that. And it was a really cool feeling once you get those scans back and you see what worked and what didn't work, and you see like a fun little moment, or the way that there's a light leak, or some of the different things that I've had happen with these cameras. Like, I had a bunch of double exposures on one roll. So it's been really interesting.
I had a similar experience. I forget how long ago it was. I would have to look at the XF data on the images. But I went down to New Orleans, and at the time I had my DSLR stuff, and I had a whole bunch of kit. And within a couple of days, I just got tired of carrying it. And I had just gotten my first smartphone. And I said, I'm just leaving this stuff at the hotel, and I'm just going to use the smartphone. And I had so much fun with it because I found myself being a lot less precious about my compositions.
Yep.
And I was doing stuff with that phone that I would never have done with the DSLR. I was like holding it over my head. I was putting it on the ground. I was just jutting it forward. I didn't really care about being precise.
Yep.
And the images that I got back from there were just amazing because they were remarkable photographs because they had an energy to them that my normal stuff, though well lit and nicely composed, was lacking. Mm-hmm. And I think, and for me, it was just that, oh, wow, I kind of rediscovered an approach to making pictures that I'd kind of forgotten about because I'd gotten into this bad bandwagon of has to adhere to all these rules.
Well, it's interesting because it's all happening in our heads. Like, it's not, that side of what you were experiencing was always there. And I feel the exact same thing. Like, I get very, almost too hyper focused on, I hate the background, or this is just not the right spot. I'm just like, you're just not feeling it. But when you it's almost like going on, I don't know if you've ever done like a photo walk type of thing where you have like one lens, one camera.
Oh yeah, all the time, yeah.
And it's really enjoyable. And it's kind of like the same thing where you can, just relax and you can just have fun with it. And if it works, great. If it doesn't, great. Like, who cares? And I don't really get to experience that kind of like, if it works, great. If it doesn't, whatever. Like, I don't get to experience that with my work, my real work. And the film camera allowed me to just kind of not care. Like, when it turns out like the pictures are actually kind of cool and people interact with the camera differently, it felt different to me taking it especially from then on, now that I was like, okay, this actually works. Yeah. And people like it and it's funny. Like, you walk up to a driver or somebody with a film camera, they think it's funny.
If you're ready to take your photography to a deeper, more personal level while exploring one of the most visually rich places in the world, I invite you to join me in May for my next workshop in Japan through Nobechi Creative. It's an immersive program designed to challenge and inspire photographers who want to make more than just postcard images. You can learn more and reserve your spot by visiting nobechicreative.com. I'm also partnering with F8 Photographic Workshops for a special workshop in Vietnam at the end of the year. These workshops are designed to go beyond technique to help you to refine your vision, express your voice, and make meaningful, connected images. You can find out more by visiting f8photographicworkshops.com or check out the show notes or the website. You mentioned a couple of things that you kind of could not have anticipated before. But as you started looking at the pictures, that you started accumulating photographs, what were some of the things that you discovered that surprised you?
I mean, I think the surprising part was that that gear is it's important. Like we were talking about earlier, it's important. Yes, camera gear is important, but our ability to be creative is more important. And, from a standpoint of what I was actually getting back out of the pictures, being able to, take all of the things that I know about taking pictures of race cars where you're using slow shutter speed to pan the cars. I can take all of that and I can put the same principles toward a essentially disposable film camera that I have no control over, but I know essentially what its settings are. Mm-hmm. And then I can still make cool pictures with that camera and have fun with it. It's really like kind of taught me just like to slow down and enjoy the photography of it. But yeah, it's been like kind of, you get every single roll I get back is different than the last one. There's no two that are the same. Just with lighting, with the film stocks have been different. And I'm not a film nerd at all. Like, I've just kind of thrown myself into this side of it. But yeah, it's been really interesting.
What did you sort of discover about shooting this way that you later applied when you were using your Z9 or whatever other camera that you were using?
I think honestly the best thing that it's taught me is to like really slow down. Like when with the film stuff, like I said, you get a picture, you get 2 or 3 before it's kind of like, how many pictures of this do I need? I can kind of take that same mentality to my Z9, and I can, if I'm standing there in a corner or taking a picture of a car that's just sitting there in front of me, like I don't need 100 pictures of it. I can get what I need in 2, 3, 4 if it's not moving, or just wait for the moment that I need with a person that's standing there talking, or whatever the moment is, to just really like slow down. Because with a film roll you get 36, and there was a couple that I did that were 24 because I would just stop. I know that the camera was going to break after that. So, I would do 24 exposures, and that's all I had for that session, because I know I didn't have any more rolls of film on me for that particular moment until I went back to the media center. So really slowing down has definitely, I've used that in my professional work, because I've been using this film camera more and more and more over the last year and a half now, almost 2 years, that I can take this mentality of slow down, find your shot, pick your moment, because we get so lazy with mirrorless, especially. You can just push a button and it just rattles off 20 pictures in a second. And I don't need 20 pictures in a second.
Nobody does.
No.
Who wants to go through all those images?
Nobody.
Especially with you, if you've been shooting for 24 hours, that's a lot of pictures to have to go through.
Yeah, and especially at the end of a race, they're not all good pictures. They're rarely I'm kind of sometimes taking pictures just to keep myself awake. So you're what am I doing out here? And I can slow down and I can really try and okay, this is what I want to make. This is what I want to do with this particular location or the light right now. And I can do that without having to just go do it just to do it.
Well, you're often working with clients who have specific needs. So, each time you go to a race, are there particular images that you have to get? Because, you could take countless images of any race. But since you're working for a particular client, say Lamborghini, and you're shooting a particular race, is there a particular set of images that you need to get ahead of time and that they're the priority above all else?
Yeah, it depends on the client. It depends on, there's a bunch of different variables to that, but really each client has their own requests, and some of them have no requests. They've hired me because they know me, or they like what I show on Instagram or whatever it is. They just want me to go make pretty pictures, which is my favorite kind of client. They're just go make pretty pictures. I'm yes. But then there's others who need a much more specific, we need very boring, relatively fast shutter speed, but still kind of showing a little bit of motion, end-to-end sharp of the car from direct side on for how they're going to use it on the website, or they need a specific angle. They will give me that specific angle that I need to deliver. And, some of those clients they have very long and lengthy shot lists. It's very similar to being a wedding photographer, where the bride will give you we need all these people together. We need these people together. We need the mother of the groom and the father of the groom, and the cousins and aunts and uncles, and make sure you get the tablescapes and the ring shots. There's stuff that we know in our heads as a mental checklist. I have to do this, but then you get that other checklist from the client. This is what we need. And some of them I've gotten 5-page, for a 24-hour race, I'll get a 5-page shot list of, we need this driver doing this, we need this driver doing this, we need headshots of everybody, we need shots of all 3 cars on track, from these different angles. There's a lot to it. And sometimes it can feel overwhelming, where you're you don't even need me. You hired me, but anybody could do this. It's not specific to a person. Yeah, those types of shot lists, you kind of read through it, and you really have to stay on top of it, with a pen, and check off and scratch through what you've already accomplished and not accomplished.
It seems
to keep on top of it.
It seems with that, it's really about the relationship you have with whoever the art buyer is.
Totally. And depending on how much they pay is how willing, it's not willing, but how willing I am to oh, you've given me a 5-page shot list, but you're paying me $100. No.
One of the things that I'm really curious about is that, you travel all over the world for these races, and there's a lot of talk about the cars and the drivers, but, it seems to me that knowing the track and the nuances of the track are as important as anything else. Tell me about that aspect, about understanding the uniqueness of each track and finding, the best spots to shoot from, but also in terms of being able to read how it's going to be traversed throughout the race, whether it's F1 or whether it's endurance.
A lot of it comes from experience and knowing not just the sport, because F1 is very different to endurance racing. but knowing kind of how the races evolve, but also, how different it is to shoot a race versus a practice session. And a practice session, you rarely get two cars running together, but during a race, you get two cars running together all the time. And it can be a very important two cars. Like, it can be the championship leader and the guy that's like right behind him trying to like catch him for the championship. So there's some very important like pictures to be made in a race, but that, aren't always an option to do in a practice session. But when it comes to like knowing the track, every single track is different. There's places that we are and aren't allowed to shoot that we call red zones. There's so many different like my favorite part of my job, to be honest, is that it's not studio based. Like, I know how to do studio work, but it's all very controlled environment stuff. Like, you create what you want in a studio. Like, your lighting, you create that. Whereas with motorsport and like outdoor sports in general, we have no control over it except where we stand and what position we're pointing in relative to the sun and where our subject kind of falls within that. So there's places and tracks that we'll go to, like some of my favorite corners in the world are only my favorite corners at sunrise and sunset. Every other time of day, they're awful. Like, I wouldn't go there between the hours of like 9 a.m. and 4 p.m. I just won't go there because it's so bad. But as soon as you get to sunset at like 5 p.m. or 6 or 7 p.m. or whatever time sunset is, that corner suddenly becomes heaven on earth, because suddenly it's just like the most backlit, beautiful golden hour bliss that you can possibly imagine. And knowing where the sun is going to set, knowing exactly what part of the corner you need to be standing in. There's so many different like places and sometimes options to go to for golden hour, and you have to know, okay, this is my plan for this part of the race, and here's where I can get to in this amount of time. Yeah, it's like kind of a whole science behind being a motorsport photographer, is like the preparation side of learning the tracks, walking the tracks, going to the tracks. The more times you go, the easier it gets. But sometimes the more times you go to a track, I don't want to say it gets boring, but you have to start looking at it in a very different way, which is partly why I ended up doing the film stuff. It's like, I just want to see it in a different way. But if I've been to one of these tracks 30 times, relatively the same time of year, every single time, like, I know where sun sets, I know what corners are good, I know what corners aren't good. You really start to have to like push yourself a little bit to think outside the box or shoot it differently. Or maybe I'm going to do, pit lane for sunset, which is not something I would normally do, but it could be epic. And just because I've done sunset at this track so many different times, I need to do it differently. But I really enjoy the preparation aspect of it, because, when you do get to go to a new track, like I got to go to a couple new tracks this year that I've never been to. And it was daunting, but at the same time, like, you felt so creatively free that I'm like, I don't know where I'm going. Maybe I'll go over here because it looks cool. Like, I'll just figure it out. And you kind of find stuff that other people haven't done before just because they see it so many times. They just don't see what you see as a fresh pair of eyes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Early on when I was doing photojournalism, I would typically see like a group of photographers all go to the same spot.
Yep.
Right. And then every once in a while you see someone do something different. And it's really hard when you're in competition with a bunch of other people, and the inclination is to try playing it safe.
Yep.
Right? Because if you don't, you might not get the shot that you need to satisfy the editor.
Yep.
So you're under incredible amount of pressure, and you're around a bunch of other photographers who have the same gear, who have different degrees of experience, but pretty much
generally
on par with
they're the best
have.
in the world is in some sports. Like, and it's like being at the Olympics.
Yeah.
Like, these are the best sports and racing photographers in the world.
So you're aware of that, but you can't allow yourself to be intimidated by it at the same time. You got to do what you need to do. But, like everyone else, we're all awash with certain insecurities.
Yep.
So how do you surmount such moments?
Part of it goes back to like being an athlete. Like, I just really enjoy the competition, and it's a very different competition now. Like, when I was a jockey, the competition I had, like, I'm riding against some of the best jockeys in the world. And now I'm rubbing shoulders with some of the best photographers in the world and people that I look up to and have always looked up to from the very beginning. I call friends. I really enjoy, I'll look at Instagram. Like I have a couple of photographer friends of mine that, one in particular, my buddy Camden Thrasher, he's just so annoyingly talented. And I'll go to a race and I'll be standing near him. I'll see him doing something. I'm like, what is he doing? Like, what is he doing? And I'll just think like, this is some stupid Camden thing that he's doing. And he'll post the picture on Instagram later. And somehow he's found a rainbow with a unicorn jumping over the rainbow with a race car going underneath of it. And it's all real. It's not Photoshopped. Like it's real. He's made it in camera, and he's just that good at seeing stuff. And I hate him. I hate him so much because I see that like talent and creativity he has that I don't have. But at the same time, like I'll go do something that I know that he can't do, or I'll see something that he doesn't see. And I just really enjoy the competition side where we all have a really, especially on a professional level, we all have a really, we have a good way of like kind of interacting with each other, good banter. You can kind of make fun of each other. Like you can't have thin skin in this game. Like in the media center, it can be a ruthless place. Oh. And I really enjoy that because it's fun. Like we laugh a lot. And at the end of the day, like, the people that you're really, that you respect and that respect you, like it's a fun environment to work in because, we can sit out there at a corner for sunset and like all just kind of like high five each other afterward. Like I remember this year at Daytona during our testing session, we had this insane rain downpour for the last like 5 minutes of testing. Like the water was truly, it was like falling from the sky, but then hitting the ground so hard that it was bouncing back. Oh. I mean, and we all got pictures of the cars like running in the rain and we're soaking wet. Like nobody had rain gear on us. Like we had rain gear on our cameras, but we didn't have rain gear on us. And so we're all like soaking wet and dripping like wet dogs. And I remember we all, after they basically red flagged the session, which was basically they canceled the session because it was too wet and there's too much rain. And we all stood up and we're like high-fiving each other and hugging and like, that was awesome. Like that was so much fun. And it was really cool because you have that group of people that you work alongside week in and week out. Like sometimes I see these people more than I see my family in some months. And it's a really cool environment because you have a huge amount of respect, but also a huge amount of competition where it's like, I want to make a better picture than they are. Yeah. It's not that I want their clients. Like I'm very happy with the clients that I have, but also, I wouldn't steal somebody's client that I know has had for 20 years, 10 years, 5 years, 2 years, doesn't matter. Like that's not my business practice, but I want to make pictures that I'm proud of, that I would have looked up to when I was learning and growing. And it's really cool to like have that competition where we all want to try and like do it a little bit better or a little bit differently. Even if it's not better, it's just different.
Since you're in competition with all these exceptional photographers, when clients come to you, what are the qualities that you feel you bring to the table that distinguish you from the other photographers and lead people to say, I want to work with you as opposed to somebody else?
I mean, I think one of the biggest things is probably that I just have a lot of experience covering a lot of different types of racing. Like I haven't covered just one type of racing. I've had experience covering lots of different types of racing. And I think that's given me a leg up over some of the other photographers that clients can hire. Working in Formula One is obviously like a really big, check mark on the resume that it helps a lot. But just the fact that I've been doing it for a very long time, more than a decade at high levels working with manufacturers, it just kind of like people get to know not just that you're able to reproduce quality consistently, which is obviously important on a professional level, but that you can, no matter what happens, when it starts pouring rain or it's 100 degrees out, like you're still going to be out there, you're still going to be doing it, because not everybody, like I can promise you, not everybody, when it starts really raining, not everybody's like running out the door into the rain. Whereas myself and some of my other colleagues that have been doing it for a long time, we know that that's when the best pictures are to be made, is when it gets hard. And I love that. And then on the other side, even I would say I'm probably on the more expensive end of what I'm charging clients for my work, but I also know that like I'm going to bring the pictures that I can stand behind and that they can use on a global level, that they can be proud of, that represent their brand. And then you take that a little bit farther some of the best things that I've learned in this industry is that you can be the best photographer on earth. You can be, in some ways the most professional, like almost straight edge, like corporate type, like personality, but that doesn't mean you're going to get all the work. Like sometimes at the end of the day, when you're traveling as much as we are, you want to be around people that you like being around.
Right.
And I've built some amazing relationships with people, like I off the top of my head, one of my very good friends who's a client, he works with Lamborghini and he's like one of their like heads of global marketing. Like he's technically my big boss. And he and I have had some absolutely hysterical nights out at events and things where like maybe there's a little bit of alcohol involved, but like we just laugh, and you just laugh so hard till your stomach hurts. And you build those relationships that it's not just like a handshake, like, hello, I'm Jamey, nice to meet you. Like not the superficial stuff. Like you get to know people. Like I invited some of these people to my wedding because they were that close with me. And it's not that I wanted to invite them to be, like, oh, I invited you to my wedding, you can't fire me now. Like, it's not that kind of relationship. It's that they are my friends. These are people that I love on a personal level. Like I know about their personal life. I know their wives and their kids, and I know their personal life and their struggles and the wins and losses that they deal with in real life. Like, life is hard. Like, especially as you get older, it's hard. And, we all deal with health problems, or you have family that has health problems. And, when you surround yourself with friends and people that you love and that love you, and you're able to work together, it's a really, really amazing feeling. Because when you go into work at, the beginning of the day, or you're there for 2 weeks in Daytona or a week in Le Mans for the 24 hours of Le Mans, like it's a really amazing feeling to walk into a garage or the hospitality or wherever, and you're given hugs and, how are you? Like, how's your wife? How's the kids? Tell us what's going on with your world. And it's a really cool feeling.
For years, photographers not only earned their living from, shooting the images and whether they ended up immediately in magazines or newspapers, but secondary sales, whether it was stock or relicensing. And that world's been changing dramatically.
Massively.
How has that changed and reshaped how you're able to earn a living from your photographs?
I'm pretty lucky that with car racing, there isn't so much like after event licensing. There used to be a fair amount of it, but now like the bulk of the money and where the work is when you get hired for a weekend to cover a race for a manufacturer, a team, a driver. But occasionally I'll get asked to do a print of a car, like, from the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, the Formula One race. I've sold a couple prints to people that want to, it's the holiday season. So, you might have somebody that has a daughter or son, or they want to have like something physical that they can hang on their wall that celebrates their favorite driver or whatever. But I'm well aware that there's only so many blank walls in the world that you can put a picture of a race car. Like I've said this before, that, car racing is an amazing sport. I love it. There's lots of people that love it, but you're not always going to hang a picture of Lewis Hamilton or Max Verstappen in your living room. Like, my wife, I know, is not going to be down with me having a Lewis Hamilton print in the living room, even if it's my favorite picture I've ever taken, she's going to be like, no, I think you could keep the race car stuff in your office. And I'm well aware that there's a pretty limited market for that. There's really almost no resale on editorial stuff. It's very rare. And when it does happen, like Getty Images is such a powerhouse with they have everything covered. Nobody's going to need to come find Jamey Price to find a picture of Lewis Hamilton if they need something for a magazine to run in Maxim or whatever magazine. But print sales and really is kind of been a little bit of a, I pay the groceries maybe on print sales annually.
Yeah.
And I was to kind of piggyback on that, I was well aware that doing a book is going to be a hard sell, even though it's different. Book is a different thing to have. It's hard to sell anything physical these days because people just don't necessarily want it.
Yeah, but I appreciated how different this was from other books that I've seen on the same topic, just as a result of the fact that you shot it the way that you did. What was the reaction to your compatriots, to the initial images that you made, and to the book once it was out?
I had mixed reviews, if I'm honest, because people are salty. I think I don't know.
That's a good word for it.
I don't know if it's jealousy or if it's just I had a lot of people. Social media is a really, what's the word, toxic place. And, some of these subreddits and forums and, you could put a cool sequence of pictures up that I like, that I'm proud of, and somebody's going to be in there nah, you didn't do it right. Or, pick your criticism that's totally unfounded. They couldn't do it any better themselves. They probably couldn't do it at all, but they're just going to spout it on the internet. So I had a lot of people that were like, what are you doing? Professional F1 photographer, motorsport photographer, dabbling with a disposable film camera, essentially. Why don't you bring a real camera to these races and do real film and with a 50 millimeter, do it for real instead of this junk disposables. And, I had friends say that too. And it's honestly comes down to, I didn't want to bring, I have a Canon A1 from the 80s that it was my mom's Canon A1. So it has a program mode where it's basically an aperture priority that you can put it in, but it has no autofocus or anything. It just has a 50 millimeter, you load film in it. And I've really enjoyed using it, but I have not taken it to a race because I still have to think about the settings.
Exactly.
I still have to think about, is it in focus? Is it not? All the things that I don't want to think about. I want to pick up a disposable camera, hold it up to my eye, and take a picture. And if I need to move closer, then I move closer. If I need to move farther back, then I move farther back. And those are my options. And I had people that were like, you're such a waste. It's such a waste of your access to do something on this type of camera, and the quality's junk and the lens looks junk. I'm like, it is junk and it is junk. You're right. And I'm not going to argue with you about that, but I've still enjoyed using it. And yeah, that's good enough for me. So I think the people that have the book, I have a couple clients that have purchased it, some of my Lamborghini colleagues that I work for have purchased the book because not only do they want to support me, but also there's pictures of Lamborghinis in it, and it's just kind of a fun thing to have on their coffee table or to flip through. I've had some really amazing positive reactions from people, but I've long ago stopped listening to the noise from, the people on social media that just have a keyboard and a place to spout their nonsense.
Yeah. There's something to be said for not how images look, but how they feel. And I think that by moving away from being sort of technically perfect with everything, which can just end up leaving you cold, imperfection has its advantages, as you're adeptly do in this book. Yeah, it doesn't look like anything in the stuff on your website. If people want to look at that, they can go to your website and see that, yeah, you do know what you're doing.
Well,
right?
one of my good friends, Larry Chen, is a very well-known automotive photographer based in LA, and he just did a book that I bought, and it's massive. it's massive. I mean, it's 300 or 400 pages. And I asked him, I was like, I looked through it, and I mean, his pictures are beautiful, but he's got like 1,000 images in this book. And I was like, how did you go through and pick all these pictures? And he's like, I had to look through 5 million pictures, I think, for my 20-year career doing photography to pick these 1,000. And that right there, I was like, no, I'm not. I can barely stand to look at my pictures from one race weekend, much less, 20 years of my work. That not all of it I like. Some of it I do, but not all of it I like. And for this film stuff, like I only had to look through, I think it was maybe, we ended up like 200 and something pictures for this.
Yeah. And
I think it maybe came from a set of 700 total. So, it was really easy to like pick, I like this one. This makes me feel something. This was a cool moment. I took out some pictures of people or things that I really liked. And some of it I wish that I'd kept in. Like, I have a portrait of a friend of mine that same guy, Camden Thrasher, I took a portrait of him at Daytona a couple years ago. And the film had like water spots all over it because the film lad kind of screwed it up or something. Like, I don't know. But it was definitely an imperfect photo. But I didn't include it in the book because who's going to care about a picture of Camden? I love Camden. I like this picture, but it doesn't fit within this book. It's better replaced by a picture of Jenson Button, former Formula One world champion, something like that. But there's so many like little moments kind of like that I didn't include just because for whatever reason. But I can't imagine looking through my digital work and feeling the same thing about something I care about even less. So
I thoroughly enjoyed the book, and
thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing it with me. Well, my last question that I ask each guest is that I ask them to recommend another photographer for our listeners to discover and explore. And it can be anyone, someone you've long admired or someone you've recently discovered. So who would that one photographer be and why?
I've already mentioned him a couple times, but I'm going to go with my buddy Camden Thrasher. He's an amazing photographer. His images are beautiful, and he does car racing alongside me. But actually what he's probably best known for now is his aviation photography. And he has a passion for fighter jets and helicopters and military aircraft that I wish I was that passionate about anything. But he has some absolutely incredible work, and I'm proud to call him a friend, but also he's an incredibly talented photographer. So definitely check out Camden Thrasher.
Oh, Jamey, thank you for that. And thank you for sharing your stories and your work with us.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate your kind words about the book, and it's been a pleasure.
Thanks to Jamey for sharing his bold and refreshingly unfiltered project. You can explore Racing Unfiltered and see more of his work by visiting jameypricephoto.com or by following him on Instagram. And if you enjoy The Candid Frame, please leave a review on whatever app you use to listen to podcasts. Share our favorite episode on social media, and remember to use the hashtag #TheCandidFrame and let others know what resonated with you. You can also support the show financially through Patreon or make a one-time donation through buymeacoffee.com/TheCandidFrame. Your support helps us to continue bringing you meaningful conversations with photographers all over the world. And please remember to subscribe to our newsletter on Substack, where I share information not only on the podcast, but all things photography. Our audio engineer is Martin Taylor, who you can find at theothermartintaylor.com. The show's senior producer is Cynthia Parker. And this is Ivarian X, and this is The Candid Frame.